Hello and welcome to Decode Your English. I'm so thrilled you're joining me today. Whether you're tuning in for the first time or you're a loyal listener who's been with me through this journey, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time with me. I know many of you are here because you're passionate about improving your English, sharpening your listening and speaking skills, and diving deeper into personal growth. You want to become a stronger, more confident version of yourself, and that's exactly what we're going to explore today. We're diving into an idea that I believe can transform the way you see yourself and, quite possibly, the way you live your life today. We're going to talk about something that might feel a little radical at first, why you should let go of the need to control everything about yourself. I know that might sound strange. After all, aren't we constantly told to take charge, to master every detail of our lives, to be in control of our thoughts, actions, and even how others perceive us? And yes, taking responsibility for our growth is important, but there's a big difference between growing as a person and feeling like you need to control every single aspect of who you are because you think you're not enough without that control. That's the idea I want to unpack with you today. Take a moment and think about this. Have you ever felt like you're juggling too many expectations? Maybe you've stood in front of a mirror and thought, I need to be more organized, more successful, more perfect. Or perhaps you've scrolled through social media, seen someone who seems to have it all together, and felt a pang of inadequacy. Have you ever heard that little voice in your head whispering that you need to control your emotions, your appearance, or your performance to be accepted, loved, or happy? If you're nodding along, know this, you're not alone. So many of us have felt this way at some point. In today's episode, I want to gently challenge that mindset. I want to invite you to consider a new perspective. What if you don't need to control everything about yourself? What if the pressure to have it all figured out is actually keeping you from living a fuller, freer life? What if, instead of trying to micromanage every part of who you are, you could embrace the messiness, the imperfections, and the unpredictability of being human? These are big questions. And I'm not here to hand you all the answers on a silver platter. Instead, I want to open a door to a new way of thinking, a way that can bring you peace, help you connect more deeply with yourself, and allow you to move forward with confidence. So, as we embark on this journey together, I encourage you to listen with an open mind and heart. Notice your thoughts as we dive into this topic. This isn't about being perfect or having everything sorted out. It's about learning to be kinder to yourself, to see yourself with more compassion, and to take the first steps toward embracing who you are, just as you are. Let's get started. Where does this control mindset come from? So, where does this need to control everything come from? Why do so many of us feel like we have to manage every detail of our lives, our thoughts, our habits, our image to be enough? Let's dig into this, because understanding the roots of this mindset is the first step toward questioning it. When we see where these ideas come from, we can start to realize that maybe they're not our own. Maybe they're voices we've picked up from the world around us, and maybe we don't have to keep listening to them. This mindset often begins when we're young. Picture yourself as a child, curious, carefree, full of wonder. You're exploring the world, asking questions, making mistakes, and learning as you go. But then, little by little, messages start creeping in. Maybe it's a parent who means well but points out your flaws. Why can't you be more like your sibling? Or you need to try harder. Maybe it's a teacher who focuses on what you got wrong instead of what you got right. These moments might seem small, but over time, they pile up. When the world keeps telling you what you should be, it's easy to start believing that who you are isn't enough. That's where the seed of control gets planted, the idea that you need to shape yourself into something better to be worthy. As we grow older, these messages don't stop, they multiply. Enter social media, advertising, movies, and TV shows. Everywhere we look, we're bombarded with images of perfection. The flawless influencer, the high-flying entrepreneur, the picture-perfect family. Scroll through your phone, and you'll see people who seem to have mastered life, perfect bodies, perfect careers, perfect relationships. It's so easy to compare yourself to these polished images and feel like you're falling short. You might think, if I could just control my habits, my appearance, my productivity, then I'd be happy. But here's the catch. Those images aren't real. They're curated, edited, and often staged. Yet, we internalize them, and the need to control grows stronger. Then there's perfectionism. That sneaky mindset that tells us everything we do has to be flawless. Have you ever worked on a project, maybe a presentation, an essay, or even a conversation, and felt like it had to be perfect to matter? Perfectionism whispers, if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. And since perfection is impossible, we end up in a cycle of trying to control every detail, only to feel frustrated when we inevitably fall short. I remember when I first started teaching English online, I wanted every lesson to be perfect, every word pronounced clearly, every explanation crystal clear, every slide visually stunning. I'd spend hours tweaking details, trying to control every aspect of the experience. But you know what? I was so focused on being perfect that I forgot to enjoy teaching. I forgot the real goal, connecting with my students and helping them learn. It was exhausting, and it wasn't until I let go of that need for control that I started to feel free. These influences childhood messages, meteor. Perfectionism build a mindset that says we need to control ourselves to be enough. But what if that's just a story we've been told? What if we could rewrite it? I invite you to pause and reflect. Where does your need to control come from? Can you think of a moment in your life when you first felt like you had to manage every part of yourself to be okay? Don't judge yourself for it, just notice it. That awareness is the first step toward change, not by controlling more, but by understanding yourself better. The hidden costs of trying to control everything. No, let's talk about something we don't always see right away. The hidden costs of this control mindset. When we believe we need to manage every detail of our lives, we might think we're being responsible or striving for excellence. But over time, this need for control can take a toll on our mental, emotional, and even physical health. Let's unpack some of these costs so we can understand why letting go of control might be one of the kindest things we can do for ourselves. First, there's burnout. When you're constantly trying to control your behavior, your productivity, or how others see you, you're pouring energy into an endless task. Imagine someone who feels they need to control every aspect of their work, staying late, perfecting every email, saying yes to every request. At first, people might praise their dedication, but inside, they're drained. They stop taking breaks, stop spending time with loved ones, stop doing things that bring them joy. I've been there. Early in my career, I tried to control every detail of my projects, thinking it would prove my worth. But I ended up exhausted, snapping at friends, and losing sight of why I loved my work in the first place. Have you ever pushed yourself so hard to control something that you ended up feeling empty? That's burnout. And it's a steep price to pay. Another cost is low self-esteem. When we focus on controlling our flaws, we start to see ourselves only through what's wrong with us. Maybe you're a generous, creative person, but instead of celebrating that, you obsess over how you're not confident enough or how your English isn't fluent yet. Over time, this erodes your sense of self-worth. You might stop trying new things because you're so focused on controlling your weaknesses. I had a student once who was terrified to speak in class because she thought her accent wasn't perfect. She was kind, thoughtful, and hardworking, but all she could see was what she wanted to control. That focus kept her from shining. Then, there's anxiety. The need to control everything creates constant pressure. You might worry about saying the right thing, looking the right way, or performing perfectly in every situation. Imagine going to a party and thinking, I have to control how I come across so people like me. That kind of pressure makes it hard to relax and be yourself. You're so busy managing your image that you miss out on the moment. I've felt this too, standing in front of a group, trying to control every word, every gesture, only to realize I wasn't connecting with anyone because I was too caught up in my head. Finally, let's talk about relationships. When we try to control ourselves to please others, we risk losing our authenticity. Maybe you've changed how you act, hidden parts of yourself, or agreed with things you don't believe in just to be accepted. At first, it might seem like it's working, but over time, you might feel disconnected, even resentful. You're not being true to yourself, and that's a heavy cost. I once tried to control how I came across in a friendship, always saying what I thought the other person wanted to hear, but I felt like I was wearing a mask, and eventually, I realized I wasn't being seen for who I really was. These costs burnout, low self-esteem, anxiety, and strained relationships create a cycle. The more we try to control, the worse we feel, and the more we think we need to control to fix ourselves. But the problem isn't who we are, it's the belief that we need to control everything to be enough. So, pause and reflect. Have you ever felt drained from trying to control too much? Have you ever lost sight of your strengths because you were focused on managing your flaws? If so, you're not alone. And the good news is, there's a different way forward, a way that's kinder, gentler, and freer. The difference between control and freedom. Let's shift gears now and explore a key distinction. The difference between trying to control yourself and embracing freedom. These two approaches might seem similar, but they're worlds apart, and understanding this can change how you see yourself and your life. Control is about restriction. It comes from a place of fear, the fear that you're not enough, that you won't be accepted unless you manage every detail. When you try to control yourself, you're often trying to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. It's like trying to force a puzzle piece into a spot where it doesn't belong. You might squeeze it in, but it doesn't feel right, and it takes a lot of effort. Control focuses on eliminating flaws, avoiding mistakes, and meeting impossible standards. It's exhausting because it's rooted in the belief that you're not okay as you are. Freedom, on the other hand, is about expansion. It's about allowing yourself to be who you are, imperfections and all, while still growing and learning. Think of a river flowing naturally. It doesn't try to control its path. It moves around obstacles, carves new routes, and keeps going. Freedom means accepting yourself as you are now while staying open to growth. It's not about erasing parts of yourself, but about discovering and embracing them. Freedom comes from love for yourself, for learning, for life. Let me share an analogy. Imagine you're a garden. When you're focused on control, you might obsess over pulling every weed, making every flower bloom perfectly, and ensuring the soil looks flawless. You might spend so much time trying to make the garden perfect that you forget to enjoy its beauty. But when you embrace freedom, you let the garden grow naturally. You water the plants, give them sunlight, and let them bloom in their own time. Some weeds might pop up, but they don't define the garden's beauty. They're part of its story. I remember when I was learning to dance, I wanted to control every step, every movement, to look like the professionals I saw online. I'd practice for hours, frustrated when I couldn't get it perfect. But one day, a teacher told me, stop trying to control the dance, feel it, let it flow. When I let go of that need for control, I started to enjoy dancing. I made mistakes, but I laughed them off. I wasn't perfect, but I was free. And that felt so much better. So, ask yourself, are you trying to control yourself? Or are you giving yourself the freedom to grow? Control might feel safe, but it keeps you stuck. Freedom feels risky, but it opens the door to joy, confidence, and authenticity. Reflect on this. Where in your life are you trying to control too much? What would it feel like to let go, just a little, and give yourself permission to be human? Embracing your imperfect self now. Let's get to the heart of today's message. Embracing your imperfect self. I want to remind you of something powerful. You are not a project that needs to be controlled. You are a human being, and that means you're beautifully, wonderfully imperfect. And that's not just okay, it's what makes you unique, real, And human. So many of us walk through life believing there's something we need to fix or control. Maybe it's the way you look, the way you speak, or the mistakes you've made. Maybe you compare yourself to others and think, why can't I be like them? But here's the truth. No one is perfect. Not the influencers you see online, not the colleagues who seem to have it all together, not even the people you admire most. Everyone has struggles, doubts, and imperfections. That's what makes us human. Let's revisit that beautiful Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, which we touched on earlier. Wabi-sabi is about finding beauty in imperfection, in the natural cycles of life, things that age, change, or break. Imagine an old wooden table, worn from years of use, with scratches and faded spots. To some, it might look flawed. But through wabi-sabi, it's beautiful because of those marks. They tell a story of meals shared, conversations had, and moments lived. You are like that table. Your imperfections, your struggles, your mistakes, your quirks are part of your story. They don't make you less. They make you you. Or think about kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. The cracks aren't hidden. They're highlighted, making the piece even more valuable. Your cracks, your challenges, your setbacks are part of what makes you special. They show you've lived, you've tried, you've kept going. So, what if you stopped trying to control or hide your imperfections and started seeing them as part of your beauty? Take a moment to reflect. What parts of yourself do you try to control or change? Maybe it's your accent when you speak English, your shyness in social situations, or the fact that you don't always have the perfect response. Now, imagine those parts are flaws, they're pieces of your unique story. What if you're enough? Just as you are, let that sink in. You are enough. You don't need to control everything to be worthy of love, respect, or happiness. You're already enough. Right now, in this moment. This doesn't mean you stop growing. Growth is natural and wonderful. But when you grow from a place of self-acceptance, not control, it feels different. It's not about fixing what's wrong, but about becoming more of who you truly are. So, as you move forward, whether you're learning English, building confidence, or chasing a dream, remember this: your imperfections are problems. They're part of what makes you human. And that's a beautiful thing. What happens when you let go of control? Let's imagine something different now. Picture what your life could feel like if you stopped trying to control every detail of who you are. What would your days be like if you truly believed you were enough, just as you are? What if you didn't need to be perfect to deserve peace, joy, or love? Sit with that thought for a moment, because when you let go of the need to control, something incredible happens. You start to feel free. When you stop believing you need to manage every aspect of yourself, the pressure begins to lift. You don't wake up every morning worrying about what you need to fix or control. Instead, you start to appreciate who you are right now. You might still set goals or learn new skills, but the energy behind it changes. It's no longer about proving your worth, it's about enjoying the journey. Think about how much energy we spend trying to control our flaws. Maybe you avoid speaking up in a meeting because you're worried about saying the wrong thing. Maybe you hesitate to try something new, like joining a club or learning a skill, because you think you're not ready yet. When you let go of control, you give yourself permission to try, to make mistakes, to be human. You start to trust yourself more, believing you can handle whatever comes your way. I'll share a story. When I was learning to cook, I wanted to control every recipe, every ingredient, every outcome. I'd stress over measurements, timing, and presentation, trying to make every dish perfect. But it wasn't fun, it was stressful. One day, I decided to let go. I experimented, made mistakes, and laughed when things didn't turn out. And you know what? I started to love cooking. My dishes weren't perfect, but they were mine, and that made them special. Letting go of control didn't just make cooking more enjoyable, it made me feel freer in other parts of my life too. Can you imagine that freedom? Waking up without that voice in your head saying, "You're not enough yet," going through your day without constantly checking yourself, trying to be perfect, you might feel calmer, more joyful, more open to taking risks and living fully. Reflect on this. What would change if you let go of control? How would your relationships, your work, your studies feel different? How would you feel different? Letting go of control ain't easy, it takes time. But every small step towards self-acceptance brings you closer to that freedom. So, what if you stopped fighting yourself? What if you became your own ally instead of your own critic? What might be possible then? When you let go of control, you open the door to a life that's lighter, kinder, and more authentic. And that, I believe, is a beautiful way to live. Practical ways to practice letting go of that. We've explored why you don't need to control everything and what happens when you let go. Let's get practical. How can you start living this way in your daily life? Self-acceptance and freedom are built through small, intentional actions over time. Here are some simple ways to practice letting go of control and embracing who you are. Mindful self-talk. Pay attention to how you speak to yourself. We're often our own harshest critics, saying things like, "I'm so bad at this," or "I'll never get it right." These words shape how you feel. Start noticing when that negative voice pops up. When it does, try replacing it with kinder words. Instead of "I messed up," say, "I'm learning." And that's okay. Instead of "I'm not good enough," try, "I'm doing my best." And that's enough today. Small shifts in your self-talk can build confidence and calm.journaling. Take a few minutes each day to write down your thoughts and feelings. You don't need to write a novel, just jot down one thing you're proud of, one small win, or one moment that brought you joy. Maybe you had a great conversation, tried a new English phrase, or simply took time to rest. Journaling helps you focus on what's working, not just what you want to control. Over time, it builds a more positive view of yourself. Celebrate small wins. We often focus on big goals and overlook the small steps that get us there. But those steps matter. Did you speak up in a class even though you were nervous? That's a win. Did you practice English for 10 minutes? That's a win. Did you choose to rest instead of pushing yourself too hard? That's a win too. Pause to acknowledge these moments. Say to yourself, "I'm proud of that." It reinforces that you're making progress, and that's enough. Use gentle mantras. Find simple phrases to repeat when self-doubt creeps in. Try, "I am enough," "I grow at my own pace," or "mistakes are part of learning." Write them on a sticky note. Set them as your phone background, or say them silently during tough moments. These mantras can quiet the voice that tells you to control everything and remind you to be kind to yourself. Practice letting go in small ways. Start with low-stakes situations. If you're learning English, let yourself make mistakes in a conversation without overthinking. If you're working on a project, allow it to be good enough instead of perfect. These small acts of letting go build trust in yourself and make it easier to release control in bigger areas. These practices are simple, but they're powerful. You don't need special tools or perfect conditions, just a willingness to try. So, this week, I invite you to notice when you're trying to control too much. Maybe it's when you make a mistake, compare yourself to others, or feel pressure to be perfect. When that happens, pause, take a deep breath, and say something kind to yourself, like, "I'm enough as I am." These small moments of self-acceptance can transform how you see yourself. Closing invitation as we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with a gentle challenge. This week, pay attention to the moments when you feel the need to control everything: your words, your actions, your image. Maybe it's when you're practicing English and stumble over a word. Maybe it's when you look in the mirror or compare yourself to someone else. Just notice the urge to control, and instead of judging yourself, choose kindness. Take a slow, deep breath and say, "I'm doing my best," and that's enough. Or simply, "I am enough." I also encourage you to share this conversation with someone you trust, a friend, a family member, or a colleague. Talk about what it means to let go of control and embrace imperfection. Not only will this deepen your understanding, but it's also a chance to practice your English in a meaningful way. You might be surprised to find that others feel the same pressures you do, and that connection can be incredibly comforting. If this episode resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear this message. Maybe they're struggling with self-doubt or feeling the weight of perfectionism. By sharing, you're spreading kindness and supporting your own growth. By reflecting on these ideas, before we go, let me leave you with this. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a person becoming. Every mistake, every step, every moment of doubt is part of your journey. You don't need to control everything to be enough. You already are. Let that truth guide you this week. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this episode gave you something to reflect on and a little more kindness to offer yourself. I can't wait to be with you again in the next episode. Until then, take care. And remember, you are enough just as you are.